Hello everyone, welcome to Winged Papercrafting. My name is Angel Fitch, and welcome to Template Tuesday. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. Today we're going to do our next set of templates. So here's the basic template that we're going to go through today. It's a pretty easy one. It doesn't take a lot of pattern paper, just a strip down here and some squares that I've turned on their sides to make, diamonds out of them. So this is a pretty simple card. And then we've got our fun fold for the week, and this one also is kind of simple, not a lot to it, but it does showcase a lot of pattern paper. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our basic one first. So let's see, let's open this up. I've got the recipe, as you would call it, written in here. So we've got card base that's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. We're going to give this a good burnish so it lays down nice and flat. And I've got a piece for the inside that is 4 by 5 1/4. And I've got cardstock that we would use for the sentiment, and I've gone ahead and cut mine just out of this little banner piece. And then we've got another piece of cardstock for the outside that's 4 by 5 1/4. And it looks like in my little directions here, I forgot that piece. So let's do a piece of cardstock for the outside. That's 5 by 4 1/4. Okay, just want to make sure we've got all the pieces down. So, got that for the outside, and then the pattern paper is going to consist of this strip that's 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4. And then we've got two 1.5 inch squares and a 2-inch square. And you can cut these if you have a square die that are these sizes, and there are ones that are in the everyday essentials that are perfect for this, or you can just cut these. I cut these just 1.5 by 1.5 and 2 by 2. So I didn't use a die for these. I did in the examples that I'm going to show you tomorrow maybe, but these I just cut by hand. So let's go ahead and get this put together. So we're going to start with the piece that goes on the inside. And we'll just get some glue put on here, and we'll center this up in here. Just like that. Give that a good push. And then this piece for the outside. And you could make this cardstock any color, kind of a light neutral color that you'd want. You could use a dark color too, except maybe you'd want to use a lighter one on the inside. But for the outside, for sure, you could use a dark color. As long, something that goes with whatever patterned paper you've picked out works perfectly. Then we'll go ahead and I'm just going to lay this down here for the moment. I'm not going to glue it down yet. Only because the trick here is to get your diamonds lined up so that you can get the spacing around them good. So I started by putting these two smaller ones down first and trying to make sure that I had even space on the left side and the right side. This one and all the examples that I did, I popped up on some dimensionals at this point, but I'm just going to lay this flat for our template. So we'll just put this in here. So the trick is you don't want it to go off the top, but you also want to be able to adjust this piece of strip at the bottom so that your diamond doesn't overlap it. So I'm going to push these down. And then I'll glue this down so that I know I've got the right spacing that I want between this and this piece. So it's going to leave just a very small border down here at the bottom, but that's fine. So we'll push that one down. And then the sentiment strip is just going to go centered up right here in the middle. Just something like that. So this is pretty simple. It didn't take a lot. Like I said, it doesn't take a lot of pattern paper, so this might be a good card to use up a lot of scraps of pattern paper because you don't need a whole lot. So let's move on to our fun fold. Now this one does take a bit of pattern paper, so I'm going to lay that out like that so we can see the directions here. So our card base is 11 by 4 1/4, and I've scored it at 2 1/2, 3 3/4, 6 3/4, and 8 1/4. And so once you've scored all that, when you go to fold this, what you're going to do is you're going to, starting with this very first one on the right hand side, you're going to fold this to the right, fold this back to the left, fold the next one to the right, and the last one back to the left. And then take your bone folder and give them all a good crease. And you'll want to flip it over and make sure you get the bottom ones as well. Okay. And this is something that's, you know, once you get in the envelope, it'll lay a lot flatter, but as you're working with it, it kind of doesn't. Okay, next thing we need is cardstock. So we need, let's see, cardstock are these pieces. So the darker gray represents the pattern paper in my little color scheme here. And the lighter gray is our cardstock. So we have got a piece that is 2 1/2 by 4. And that is the piece that, let me see which one, that goes here on our very end. And then we've got 1 1/4 by 4, which is going to be this piece here. Next piece is going to be 2 3/4 by 4. So this is going to be our piece that goes right here. And then next I've got 1 by 4, which just tucks right in that fold. And then on the outside, so we've got one more piece that's 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. This is going to make the square that goes on the outside. So this right here is going to be a 4 by 4 square of cardstock. And then this pattern paper is, well, our cardstock goes next. So it's 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And a piece of pattern paper for the very top that's 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. And then the rest of these pattern pieces here are the ones that are going to go onto our card, onto our mats here. So we've got a 2 1/4 by 3 3/4 that goes here. 1 by 3 3/4, it goes there. And then this one is, what is this one? This one is 3/4 of an inch, yeah, by 3 3/4, and that one goes there. Okay, there's no pattern paper on this piece because this is what we're going to put our little white piece on that we can write on. So a place to put your sentiment and sign the card goes there. And this is going to be for your sentiment for the outside. So let's glue this all down. So I'm going to take each section at a time and put the pattern paper onto the cardstock mat. And we'll just center each one of these up. And then we'll get it glued to the card base. And let's see. Yeah, that looks good. So we'll put that right in there. And then our next piece goes here. And then we'll put this whole piece down right here. Now, as you're going along, you're going to want to make sure you try to line the tops, make them even at the top and the bottom, so that it looks continuous across your card base there. I'm going to move this over just a tad, if I can. There we go. Okay, that looks better. All right, so we'll get that down. Next piece. So this is going to be our sentiment signature piece here that we're going to write on. And we're going to put that on this cardstock. We'll center this up. Possibly. It doesn't want to move. Oh, there we go. Oh my goodness. Sometimes it just grabs to the paper much quicker than other times. I don't understand that, but hey, I guess better than not sticking at all, right? So we'll line this one up like that. Oops. And then let's see, next piece. We've almost got this. So we'll put our little tiny, this piece right here is kind of optional. If you want to put another piece in this little crease right here, you can, but you don't have to. But I kind of liked it, so I went with it. But I've seen several variations out there where they left this blank and just let it be the card, you know, the color of your card base. But that is completely up to you. Okay, so now let's put this like this. Okay, so there's all those pieces. Now let's get our front piece, our square, together here. So we'll put cardstock on top of this. So this 4x4 square on the bottom ideally should match your card base there. And then we're basically double matted everything. So there's our second mat of cardstock, and this is our pattern paper. And we'll get that centered up here in the middle. There we go. And then this represents our sentiment. So you could put any sentiment on here, any shape that you wanted. I chose a square just because that's kind of like the theme of the card, but you could use a circle or an oval or whatever you wanted to put as your sentiment shape. Is completely up to you. Now, here's how we attach this. We're going to attach this like this. We want to make sure that it covers our strip in here that we're going to write on, because we don't want any of that showing when you're just looking at the front of the card. So what I'm doing is I'm just laying it down and kind of making sure that I've lined this edge up with the bottom of the edge below it. And then I'm going to say, okay, that looks pretty good. Now, I know by looking that I can't put glue past about right here because I don't want to glue the card shut. So I'm just going to try to keep the glue to this left-hand side. And we'll just set this back down on here and wiggle this around so that it's covering the bottom layer. And then we'll give this left-hand side a nice press. And there we have our fun fold card. So not too bad. It was not hard at all. There are quite a few pieces to it, but like I said, it's a good way to showcase a lot of pretty pattern paper, which we're going to see later on in the week when we make cards out of this for Fun Fold Friday. So here are our two card templates that we've made today. Let me find this other one here. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe and ring that bell so you get notified every time I upload a video, and that way you won't miss the basic cards that we're going to make tomorrow out of the basic template and our fun fold ones that we're going to do on Friday. So that's all I've got for today. Have a crafty evening. Bye.